My friend's roommate works in tech support and told me about this absolutely bonkers caller who insisted his monitor wasn't real because pixels were showing up on the screen. He demanded a replacement monitor that displayed absolutely nothing visible because he thought pixels were a defect. When explained that pixels create images, he wanted images without pixels somehow appearing. A colleague's sister mentioned dealing with someone whose printer wouldn't recognize the ink cartridges she'd bought from a third-party seller. Instead of purchasing compatible cartridges, she demanded the printer manufacturer redesign their devices to accept any random cartridge regardless of specifications. She wanted universal compatibility through impossible engineering standards. My coworker's husband shared this story about his friend who called support, complaining that his keyboard had too many letters on the keys. The keyboard showed both uppercase and lowercase letters on each key because of typical keyboard design. This person thought keyboards should only display one letter per key and demanded a custom keyboard made specifically for him. One of my acquaintances mentioned her brother-in-law who contacted support because his laptop kept shutting down after he dropped it repeatedly off a desk. He expected technology to survive constant physical abuse without any damage whatsoever. When told his device had internal damage, he demanded we replace it free of charge because gravity shouldn't affect electronics. My neighbor's adult son told me about a customer service situation where someone demanded their phone battery last forever without ever charging. They'd purchased the cheapest phone available and expected premium battery life that defied physics. When explained that larger batteries provide longer life, they refused to accept physical limitations and wanted technological magic instead. A friend of my sister's works at a call center and mentioned this woman who called absolutely furious that her computer required a password. She seemed to think security was optional and demanded a computer she could access instantly without typing anything. She wanted complete protection without any inconvenience whatsoever. My cousin's workplace friend described someone who'd installed his software incorrectly on purpose just to see what happened, then demanded technical support for the intentional malfunction. He refused to reinstall properly and wanted us to make his broken installation work somehow. He wanted software to function despite being deliberately misconfigured. One of my dad's coworkers relayed this story about a customer whose email kept rejecting messages because she typed the recipient's address wrong. Instead of learning to spell email addresses correctly, she demanded email systems recognize misspelled addresses through psychic intent. She wanted the internet to read her mind and deliver her messages to people she didn't actually address them to. My uncle's friend mentioned dealing with a customer whose smartphone screen went black because the battery was completely dead. She refused to charge it and insisted the phone should work indefinitely without power. When told all devices need power, she complained that electricity requirements were a flaw in modern technology. A woman from my gym told me about her brother who contacted support saying his Wi-Fi password was too complicated. He wanted passwords that were simultaneously completely secure and extremely simple that he could remember instantly. He demanded impossible security through contradictory requirements. My partner's colleague shared details about someone whose external hard drive failed after he'd accidentally kicked it across the room. He expected the device to survive physical impacts without any protection or damage whatsoever. When told electronic components break when damaged, he sued the manufacturer for making fragile products. One of my classmates' mothers works in customer support and told me about this person who insisted their monitor was defective because colors looked different when viewed from an angle. She seemed to think all viewing angles should show identical colors regardless of display technology. She wanted physics-breaking screens that displayed colors the same from any perspective. My friend's dental hygienist mentioned a customer service situation where someone demanded a refund because his download speed was too fast. He claimed rapid downloads were straining his brain and demanded we throttle his connection permanently. He wanted slow internet as a health accommodation somehow. A person I met at a conference shared this story about her neighbor who called technical support, absolutely livid that his computer asked for permission before installing software. He thought authorization requirements were insulting and demanded a computer that installed anything without asking. He wanted security vulnerabilities disguised as convenience. My sister's book club friend works in tech and told me about someone whose wireless headphones kept disconnecting because they were too far from the paired device. Instead of keeping the device closer, she demanded wireless technology that worked from any distance. She wanted physics-defying Bluetooth range through impossible specifications. One of my acquaintances from volleyball mentioned her uncle who contacted support because his printer only worked when plugged in. He'd expected wireless functionality from a device with no wireless capabilities. When told he needed to read the product specifications, he complained that manufacturers should hide the fact that products don't have features they don't actually have. My mentor at work described a customer service call where someone demanded their operating system be completely invisible and run silently in the background while simultaneously providing constant visual notifications. She wanted an operating system that didn't exist as far as she was concerned, while managing everything for her automatically. A friend of my brother's shared this absolutely ridiculous scenario where a customer complained that his internet connection was too consistent. He thought the occasional outage made the internet feel more real and authentic. When the technician fixed his connection permanently, he complained about losing the authentic experience of technical failures. My dentist mentioned in conversation that her sister encountered a customer who insisted his smartphone was spying on him through the microphone. Instead of disabling microphone permissions, he demanded a phone with no microphone capability that could still record audio somehow. He wanted a device that was simultaneously unable to listen while listening perfectly. One of my personal trainers told me about their friend who called support complaining that autocorrect kept changing their misspelled words to correct versions. Instead of typing correctly or disabling autocorrect, they demanded a system that ignored obvious spelling errors while correcting tiny mistakes. They wanted contradictory correction logic. My barber's regular customer shared this story about someone whose backup system kept saving his files. He'd enabled automatic backups but complained when he realized his data was being preserved. He wanted backups that backed up nothing while protecting everything somehow through impossible logic. A guy I met at my son's soccer practice mentioned his coworker who contacted support, absolutely outraged that his computer generated heat while running. He seemed to think electronics should operate at absolute zero while performing intensive calculations. When explained that processing generates heat, he demanded computers that defied thermodynamics. My yoga instructor mentioned in passing that her husband's friend had demanded technical support for a problem that didn't exist. His device worked perfectly fine, but he'd read an internet article suggesting something might be wrong someday. He wanted preventative repairs for hypothetical future problems that may never occur. One of my book's readers emailed me this story about their coworker whose email filters were working too well. The filters blocked spam perfectly, but he wanted to receive all spam while filtering nothing. He wanted email protection that completely failed to protect anything whatsoever. My accountant shared during a tax appointment this scenario, where a customer demanded their cloud storage provider explain how clouds actually held his files. He'd taken the cloud storage metaphor literally and seemed to think his data was suspended in actual clouds. When told it was servers in data centers, he complained about false advertising. A friend of my daughter's mentioned her mom who worked in support and dealt with someone whose password reset email went to spam. Instead of checking spam folder, he demanded we email him passwords in plain text without any protection. He wanted complete security vulnerability disguised as convenience. My neighbor across the street told me about his brother, who called technical support demanding that streaming video quality be higher while using lower bandwidth. He wanted premium resolution through minimal data consumption, defying compression technology. He demanded impossible engineering standards become reality. One of my former teachers mentioned a customer service situation where someone complained their mouse cursor moved exactly where she moved the mouse. She expected the cursor to predict her movements and appear where she intended before moving the device. She wanted a computer that read her mind and anticipated her actions. My pharmacist brought up in conversation this absolutely unhinged case where a customer demanded his operating system use less memory while running more programs simultaneously. He wanted better performance through less resources somehow. When told this was impossible, he complained that technology was stagnating. A friend from my book club shared details about her coworker who encountered someone whose software required him to agree to terms and conditions before using it. Instead of reading or accepting them, he demanded software that worked without any agreement. He wanted to use products without acknowledging their terms legally. My hairdresser mentioned during an appointment that her client worked in customer service and had this absolutely ridiculous encounter with someone whose antivirus flagged a malicious file. Rather than deleting it, he demanded the antivirus be disabled so the malicious file could run freely. He wanted protection from protection itself. My stepmother's best friend shared details about her workplace where a customer called absolutely furious that his software had a dark mode option. He seemed to think having choices was confusing and demanded all software come with only one color scheme. When told he could simply not use dark mode, he complained about too many options being overwhelming. A friend of my yoga class mentioned her father who dealt with someone in tech support whose password reset request was denied because it didn't meet security requirements. Instead of creating a stronger password, she demanded we lower security standards specifically for her. She wanted protection without any actual security measures whatsoever. One of my wife's sisters works at a help desk and told me about a customer whose printer stopped working after he'd spilled soda directly into the paper tray. Instead of accepting responsibility, he demanded a free replacement and blamed the manufacturer for not waterproofing paper trays. He wanted internal electronics protected from liquid without any actual protection. My cousin's friend from university mentioned encountering someone who called support because his wireless speaker wouldn't pair with his device through walls and multiple floors of his house. He'd placed the speaker in his basement and tried connecting from the attic. When told Bluetooth has range limitations, he demanded wireless technology that worked through any building material across infinite distance.